Be sure to pre-order your copy of the Go-Go Offense by Coach Brennan Marion as he takes you through the ins and outs of the most explosive offense and most exciting offense in college football. You can find it on our website at footballgameplan.com/GoGoOffense. Welcome to Football Game Plan, where football makes sense. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the Playbook. Mike McCarthy is your producer today. It's the summertime and preseason is just around the corner in the NFL, and we'll get you ready for the upcoming 2019 NFL season as we preview the Houston Texans. Now, as we kick off the season preview, let us take a look at some of the key storylines heading into the season as we go into our 4-minute offense.
In Houston, Deshaun Watson is a dynamic athlete at quarterback. He's also capable of incredible runs as well, like the one against the Bengals in 2017. However, for all his athleticism, he can't avoid every single sack. He was sacked a league-high 62 times last season, and in an effort to protect Watson, the Texans drafted Titus Howard in the first round of the draft. Jadeveon Clowney's future with the Texans is still uncertain, with trade rumors still swirling after he was franchise tagged. NFL players like their security, so I'm sure he'd like to sign a new deal with the Texans or elsewhere. Baltimore, Arizona, and San Francisco, as well as Washington, were all rumored to be interested in a trade for Clowney. The Texans were hesitant to let him go, as Clowney's power rush and run game disruption are great assets across the defensive line from J.J. Watt. The Texans are currently without a general manager, having fired Brian Gaine in a surprise move in early June. Since then, rumors of Nick Caserio of the Patriots taking the job have been persistent, but the tampering case has put a stop to their pursuit of Caserio. For now. Caserio would still like to run his own team, having been without a GM designation throughout his time in New England. In the meantime, interim general manager Chris Olsen will look to keep the Texans roster competitive in the AFC.
To put this team under the microscope and go position by position to see where they stand as we head into the 2019 season, and we'll start on the offensive side of the ball at the quarterback position. Having Deshaun Watson as your quarterback not only keeps you competitive, but it gives you a chance to go far as a franchise. He's coming off his first Pro Bowl season after completing 68% of his passes for over 4,100 yards and 26 touchdowns to only 9 interceptions. Watson is one of the best deep ball throwers in the game and has posted back-to-back seasons of 103 passer rating. His ability as a dual threat player will always keep defenses on his heels. The hope is that they can protect him more, as he was sacked the league high 62 times in 2018. In the backfield, the Texans have talent with Lamar Miller and Deonta Foreman. Now, Miller is another Texan who is coming off his first Pro Bowl appearance after nearly topping 1,000 yards last year. Keeping him healthy for a full 16 is the goal, and that could happen this year as they get Foreman back healthy and 2 years removed from an Achilles injury. Now, the combination of the two definitely helps strengthen the ground game as a whole. Keep an eye on two undrafted rookie free agents in Demario Crockett out of Missouri and Karan Higdon out of Michigan, as both backs have that explosive burst that could thrive paired up with a quarterback like Watson. The perimeter game is what makes this Texans offense go, honestly. DeAndre Hopkins can be considered the best, or at least one of the best receivers in the game. He gives Watson a bona fide number one target on the outside. Will Fuller is a true game breaker, but hasn't been able to stay healthy in his 4-year career. He's really what makes his offense scary, in my opinion, so it's important for him to find a way to stay out there on the field. Battling injuries himself as a rookie, we saw Kiki Cutie begin to emerge as a threat when he was out there on the field. Again, health permitting, these three are the most explosive core receivers in the division. I believe the depth here is emerging with Vincent Smith stepping up big last year with his play, as he got an opportunity when the core was hit with injuries. And keep an eye out for undrafted rookie free agents Johnny Dixon out of Ohio State and Tyron Johnson out of Oklahoma State, as they're very talented wideouts who can play across the formation. The tight end position has potential with both Jordan Atkins and Jordan Thomas entering their second year in the league, and with this squad, we'll see how their role increases in year 2, as they'll be looking to replace the production of the departed Ryan Griffin. I like third-round pick Kahale Warring out of San Diego State. He's got good athleticism and tremendous upside and could be an underrated option that'll emerge in the passing game. Houston acknowledged the fact that the offensive line was a major issue last year. Now, the truth is that the league-leading number of sacks weren't all on the offensive line. Some of that was on Watson as well. What's also true is that the team dealt with injuries throughout the season. So with that being a backdrop, getting back both Seantrell Henderson and Zach Fulton at full strength definitely helps strengthens them on the right side. Now on the left, Senio Calamete was another player who battled injuries all season long. His health is a plus, but I think he'll lose out to second-year player Martinez Rankin out of Mississippi State. Rankin started 4 games last year and looks to be ready for more reps. Left tackle Julian Davenport had his ups and downs last season. The hope is that he'll find that consistency within his game, which should yield better play. If not, the Texans did address the offensive line in the draft with 2 selections in Titus Howard out of Alabama State in the first round and Max Sharping in the second round out of Northern Illinois. Howard has very good athleticism and held his own at the Senior Bowl, while Sharping was solid at NIU and has the ability to play guard as well. So how well he does during camp could put him and Howard in position for starting roles, or at the very least key swing roles from jump. Houston's strong at the center position with Nick Martin and has good depth there as well with Greg Mance, who can also play guard if need be. Now here are my grades for the Texans' offensive units. The Texans are in really good shape along the defensive line, led by future Hall of Famer J.J. Watt. The 5-time Pro Bowler and 5-time All-Pro was able to stay healthy for a full season last year, his first time since 2015, and he racked up 16 sacks while leading the league with 7 forced fumbles. Carlos Watkins and Angelo Blackston are 2 really good defensive ends that are primed for big seasons. They could start on many teams in the league, in my opinion. DJ Reader gives them a very good presence on the interior, as does Brandon Dunn. 5th round pick Charles Omenihu out of Texas is a long, athletic end that plays with good length and technique, and he figures to be a part of the rotation here as well. The linebacking core is the best in the division and arguably in the NFL. Their starting 4 of Whitney Merciless, Jadeveon Clowney, Benardrick McKinney, and Zach Cunningham is tremendous. They get constant pressure and disruption from both Clowney and Merciless, and their 2 inside backers, McKinney and Cunningham, are strong versus the run and have that length and athleticism to be a problem in pass coverage. The depth took a hit here with the season-ending injury of second-year player Duke Ejiofor out of Wake Forest during OTAs, but keep an eye on Jamal Davis, an undrafted rookie free agent out of Akron, who can really bring it off the edge, and I also like inside linebacker Dylan Cole as well. On the back end, the Houston Texans were busy this offseason as they retooled this unit, with Jonathan Joseph getting up there in age, entering his 14th year in the NFL. The Texans drafted Lonnie Johnson Jr. out of Kentucky in the second round. The former Wildcat star is a very fluid defender with above-average technique and ball skills. He figures to see a lot of time this season. In free agency, they brought in Bradley Roby from the Denver Broncos to man one of the 3 corner spots, outside or in the slot. He was a huge acquisition in my opinion, as he's only there on a 1-year deal, so he has a lot to prove. Aaron Colvin looks to improve his play from last season as he dealt with injuries. I think what we saw last year from him was an aberration, and he'll get back to his 2017 form now that he's fully healthy. Back to free agency, they also signed safety Tashawn Gibson to start opposite second-year player Justin Reed, who played excellent last year as a rookie. Other signings in Brian Body Calhoun and Jalil Adai gives them good depth at safety. So with all of these new faces, it'll be interesting to see how quickly they're able to gel and get up to speed from a communication standpoint. But just looking at this from on paper perspective, it looks to be a very improved group. Now here's my grades for the defensive side of the ball for the Houston Texans. When they're at 100%, the Houston Texans have a really explosive receiving core led by DeAndre Hopkins, but it's their second-year player, Kiki Cutie, that I'm more excited about this year as he gets to go full strength from the start of the season. I'm going to show you how he could have some success in the short passing game, which could end up being a big play for Houston. Show you what we're talking about here. Big fan of the bunch set on one side with the closed formation tight end on the backside. What we're going to do is just get him the football in a short, quick way to allow him to utilize his speed, quickness, and explosiveness after the catch. We're going to put at the top of the bunch DeAndre Hopkins, and we're going to have him run up to the corner. Let's make it a little shorter so you guys on the screen can see. Up, through, into the corner right there. We're going to take Will Fuller. We knew he has good deep speed. Up, over, and break. You want these 2 guys breaking at the same spot, putting the safety in the bind, so there's a potential for a big play deep down the field. With Cutie, bring him over as if he's going to run a crossing route. A lot of times when you see speed guys going over the middle of the field on slow crossers or drag routes, defenders tend to over-exaggerate their movement, try to beat them to the spot, which leaves them susceptible for a pivot route or a whip route. We're going to have him do that. That's where Deshaun Watson can go with the football. Play fake here. Tight end can go over and back across the middle of the field, giving him an outlet, and you have protection with the back on the backside. But this is a nice, easy, quick way for the Houston Texans to get the ball to Kiki Cutie this year in their passing game. the Houston Texans are able to get aggressive defensively because they have premier talent within their front seven. And I'm talking about Jadeveon Clowney, J.J. Watt, Bernard McKinney, Whitney Merciless, and also Zach Cunningham at linebacker. And I'm going to show you how they can get pressure while also being in good position on the back end and pass coverage. You see what we're talking about here? When you have premier personnel, Jadeveon Clowney, J.J. Watt, Whitney Merciless, Bernard McKinney, and Zach Cunningham, you can apply pressure while also being safe in coverage, because these two guys, in my opinion, have what you want at the second level on the inside. They're long, lengthy, athletic inside backers that have the ability to shrink passing windows. So you could drop both those guys back and hook the curl zones, and they'll be fine in the passing game. But we're going to get pressure here. We're going to send this defensive tackle up this way, outside C gap, bring Jadeveon Clowney that speed, length, and explosiveness on the inside. Going to try to push him through that outside shoulder or inside shoulder of the center and work through him. We're going to take J.J. Watt and bring him back around the outside, and Whitney Merciless is going to come right in, get that quick pressure. Hopefully the ball comes out quick, and you're fine with your safety spine, the slot guy, safety spine, the tight end, corners on their receivers. But because you have premier talent, because you have two lengthy inside linebackers that are able to defend and run and make plays in space, this is why the Houston Texans, when they're at their full strength, just like their offense, can be very dangerous in the NFL.
So we're going to look at Deshaun Watson. Watson is a guy who's going to put up big numbers. You might get lucky that he might slip. Last year, he was a guy who was taken pretty high as a quarterback, and this year I think that in the ranking summits for some places, they had him as high as number 2. It's all variable on where you want to take Deshaun Watson. I'm of the mindset that you take a quarterback early if the quarterback is consistently one of the best, or if the quarterback is a guy who has the upside to be the number 1 guy. While Deshaun Watson does, I think that he's 2 on the radar, so I probably personally wouldn't end up with him because he'll probably go in that 5th to 6th round range. But there's nothing wrong with that. As far as his backfield, Lamar Miller's probably a good steal here because I think people will forget about him, think that he's at the end of his rope. I think that there was too many other issues going on that team, not being able to block well, not having receiving threats last year. That's when Lamar Miller started to fall off, is when that happened, when they didn't have the threats and his body started to give a little bit of fear. So you can probably get Lamar Miller this year in about the 6th round, which is really good for a starting running back who's not time-sharing. Deontay Foreman's someone to look at as a flyer because they say they like him. He's been too injured for too long for me to consider taking him outside the double-digit rounds. More of a 12th round, 13th round guy to me, just because they do have the mindset of keeping one back on the field if Lamar Miller was to go down. Receivers, there's nothing to say about Nuke Hopkins. We know he's one of the best. Apparently, some people who just retired from the NFL don't agree, but we're just going to bypass that. If you're playing in a league that's a PPR league, you want Kiki QT. He's the guy that you want because he's going to run those shorter routes. That's going to kind of function as their move the chain situation. If you're playing in a best ball league or a standard league, Will Fuller just catches long passes and touchdowns. I don't know how he does it, but he just does it consistently. He's not a consistent ball catcher, so the intermediate routes and short routes are not his thing. That's what QT is going to be used for, but he's going to dominate. As far as a tight end, they don't really have one. They have Jordan Thomas on the roster. We don't know what that's going to be, and I have not seen them utilize a tight end consistently while O'Brien's been there. Their defense, to me, is something to stay away from. First off, their opening schedule was horrendous. They might start off 0-3, and I still like this team. They're at New Orleans on Monday Night Football. They got Jacksonville at home, which is still an awful thing because Jacksonville's defense is still good. And then they're at the Chargers, so they can start off 0-3. You don't want this defense, especially early on, and I do have some issues with losing guys like the Honey Badger. Sleeper, their kicker, Fairbairn. Because of how this offense is explosive and can move, they'll be in field goal range often, if not scoring touchdowns. I think because of the defensive perils that they might have this year, they will have to score. That's what you want, is a kicker on a team that's going to score points.
Troy Anthony here, bringing you the best bets for the Houston Texans. The Texans are a team with a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. I think they can go back to the playoffs again this year, so I'm taking them at plus 135. That division is going to be between the Texans or the Colts. The Texans have a really good line here to win the division at plus 250. That's all for now. I'm Troy Anthony. Follow me on Twitter at Football Fandom, replacing the O's with zeros.
I'm David Hassagen, and this is Huddle Up with Hassagen. We're going to be firing some quick takes about the Houston Texans, who are this year's breakout candidates.
Tight end Jordan Atkins. I think he's going to develop a great rapport with Deshaun Watson, and he needs a tight end to step up in that passing game. I think Atkins can be that guy. Defensively, I look at what they have in Carlos Watkins. Now that Chris Covington is gone, Watkins out of Clemson can step in and probably play a better role in that situation than what they got out of Covington. So I think Watkins and Atkins are your breakout candidates.
Let's talk about some of the rookie impacts. Who do you look for this year for the Houston Texans?
I think one guy that they're going to count on to be an impact player is Titus Howard, the tackle out of Alabama State. He acclimated himself really well at the Senior Bowl. We saw him play left and right tackle at Alabama State, sometimes within the same drive. So they're going to need him to be the standout player they drafted in the first round. And also, you look at Lonnie Johnson Jr. out of Kentucky. I love his game. Big, tall corner with press skills, fluid in his movement, and also has the ability to play either on the boundary side or on the field side.
Who do you think the X factors are this year for the Texans?
Well, they need Julian Davenport, another small college tackle, to step up and be a premier player this year because, again, he had his ups and downs as a rookie. You expect him to take the next step. And to Sean Gibson, the strong safety they bring in, they need him to step up and be a big-time player on the back end next to Reed.
Who do you think the training camp surprises are this year for Houston?
I think you look at running back Deonta Foreman. We saw 2 years ago, his rookie year, he had the Achilles injury.
Right.
Last year, I don't know if he was fully healthy when he got back out there. They would wait for him to come in and be a part of his running game. This year, 2 years removed from it, now he can be a part of this running game in tandem. Maybe that helps out their offense. And defensively, Derek Beatty, undrafted free agent out of Kentucky, another tall corner. They had four defensive backs in that secondary that were 6'3" and above. Beatty is 6'2" and a half, 6'3", and he gives them another long corner that is able to play in zone or also press coverage.
A lot of optimism, but a lot of concern this year about the Texans. Where do you think that lies?
Well, I think the optimism is because they have a franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson. Passing game is going to be great. Defensively, they're going to be very good. They can be great. The potential is there because of the talent. The concern is, if this offensive line doesn't get better, and the concern is the running game doesn't become a difference maker, because that's one way you can help out your offensive line by running the football. If they can't do that, then they're going to have some issues. And defensively, if they don't really take that next step, they should have been dominant on defense. When you look at the front seven, they have to be that. If they're not, they could find themselves in a very tough situation in the AFC South, where a couple of teams have gotten a lot better. Emory Hunters are the Playbook here. Joining me now is fellow Football Gameplan analyst Troy Anthony for this 4 Downs with Czar segment, continuing our preview of the Houston Texans as we take a look at the road to the Super Bowl for the Texans, starting on the offense, starting up front. Obviously, the much-aligned offensive line. They bring in Max Sharping from Northern Illinois. They draft Titus Howard out of Alabama State in the first round. They made some moves bringing in free agents. If this offensive line can keep Deshaun Watson upright in the pocket, we know he loves to work touchdown to check down. He's going to find deep targets down the field. If he can do that because of the offensive line and it helps out the running game, the Texans will find themselves in the Super Bowl. I think this is easy for Houston. Improve on the offensive line, get to the big game.
Houston is close to going over that hump offensively. I love Deshaun Watson as a quarterback. He's young, smart, athletic. I can't believe he slipped. Multiple teams passed on him.
Don't get me started on that.
But I think Deshaun Watson is going to get them there eventually. We're going to have to wait and see if it's this season. But for it to be this season, I'm going to need more out of their secondary. Their secondary finished 28th versus the pass last year. I need Jonathan Joseph to demand more out of his teammates. And they lost Tyrann Mathieu. That's going to hurt big time because he is a leader. He's a natural-born leader. He's a baller. He brought a whole bunch to that secondary. The loss of Mathieu is going to hurt, but I still need more out of them because their run defense is okay. They have stars on that defensive line. Trying to help so that the pass doesn't get off. But that secondary is going to have to prove something. They're going to have to do something.
Yeah, you talk about J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney. I love their linebackers, man. You talk about Bernard McKinney and company. So they have a lot of good guys within the front seven. I think Lonnie Johnson, the cornerback, should help them out in the secondary. I thought this tape was outstanding at Kentucky. Fluid corner, can play on the boundary, can play on the field side. So hopefully they got the help they needed to do exactly what you said, be more dynamic in that regard. I think their running game has to be a little bit more dependable. You know, Lamar Miller is a good back, has the home run hitting speed, had a 95-something yarder last year in prime time where he was able to take it the distance. But I feel like every other game he's either missing a series or two, or maybe misses a game. I feel like he's not as dynamic or as explosive as he should be, as he's capable of being. I think their running game has to be a little bit more dependable. Now, whether or not they find good depth behind him, what we can see from Deonta Foreman finally when he returns from that injury, maybe he's healthy and ready to go now to provide that potent 1-2 punch. Again, in conjunction with the offensive line, but I think their running game has to be a little bit more dependable this year if Houston wants to go a long way.
No, it definitely has to be more dependable. I feel as though there's at some point during the season, Miller's gonna get injured. It always happens. It doesn't seem like Deonta Foreman can stay healthy as well, even though he doesn't get as many reps. But health is such a factor. And for them to have any chance as well this season, that defense is gonna have to stay healthy. How many times have we seen J.J. Watt and Clowney on the field consistently at the same time? Not that often. And these are two superstar DNs in the league. To have two superstar DNs on one team, that's monumental. They need to stay on the field together, helping out those linebackers, helping out those the secondary. That's the only way it's going to work.
Yeah, because we know Houston has more than enough explosiveness on offense. Deshaun Watson with his deep passing. Defensively, you got J.J. Watt with his ability to really dictate a game. If they can find consistency in certain areas of their team, we talked about the running game, we talked about the secondary, Houston can finally get over that hump and get to the Super Bowl. I have the Texans finishing first in the AFC South. This was very tough because it's going to come down to both the Houston Texans and Indianapolis Colts, but I'm going to side with the Texans because of their defense. I like the potential there. I think their offensive line will find ways to improve this season with full strength across the front. And I think, quite honestly, they have the more dynamic playmaker at quarterback, which is a difference maker, and you can trust their running game a little bit more so than Indy. So for all of those reasons, I like the Texans to finish first in a very competitive AFC South. For this season preview, I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the Playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of our social media accounts, and don't forget to check out and subscribe to Football Gameplan podcast on iTunes, where you can find our NFL All 32 podcast, our fantasy football starting lineup, as well as our Scout Team podcast, and leave us a 5-star rating. Also, subscribe to the Football Gameplan Network, located at youtube.com/Football Gameplan. Finally, every Thursday and Friday evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, be sure to check out the Football Gameplan show on the Game Plus Network. Check with your cable provider for channel listings.